Good evening, and welcome to a brand new episode of Drie Bokke, a ball and BlitzBOD. And I hope you are all ready tonight, and I hope that you're not in too negative a mood because I've got two guests and a co-host that are also not in the best of moods, judging just purely by what they're wearing tonight. Although they're coming out fighting, I think they need to find some fighting from down in the depths of their souls, quite frankly. Firstly, thank you, as always, to our partners, Workshop 17, for providing us with an amazing space that we can come to you live from this evening. Obviously, no, we're not all here, but I am very lucky that I get to sit here. But my co-host tonight, you know who he is. You've seen him on the show before. Plus, he's got one of the best YouTube channels going around. And if you don't subscribe to that, well, that's your own fault. G-Man, how are you?
Very well, thanks yourself, Andy.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm sort of excited for the show tonight, but also a bit apprehensive. Like I can look at Angus; he's already twitching there. He wants to get going straight away. He's sitting down there already, and Renan's playing it cool down the bottom. But yeah, let us introduce you to our guest tonight. I'm going to go with Mr. Renan Stenenkamp. Good friend of mine. Massive Cheetahs fan, but also hails from Hull. He's a boys' high. Should we call you a cheerleading legend rather than a playing legend, Renan? Is that right?
Yeah, playing legend, not at all. But yeah, thanks for having me again, gents. Good to be back on the show and looking to a good one.
Yeah, no worries, mate. Should be good. And I'm looking forward to everyone's opinions. And G-Man, who else we got on?
Well, we got a good friend of the channel, Angus Opperman. I'm a freelancer to Rugby 365, one of my favorite rugby news sites, a diehard Western Province and Stormers fan. Interesting topics to be discussed tonight. And yeah, I also got a YouTube channel, so go check him out. Angus, welcome to the show tonight.
Thanks, Gareth, and thanks, guys, for having me again. It's good to be here.
No worries. One of the reasons I love having Angus on is because his journalism's so honest, which is very refreshing nowadays. And scared to tell it how it is, which is how we all should be, as long as we don't offend anybody. And we're going to start with you, Angus, because, well, Western Province Rugby is continuing to produce, I'd probably say, like the Arsenal of rugby. It's starting to become a bit of a joke what's actually going on there. My first question to you is actually probably a little bit controversial, to be honest with you, but stuff it, I'm going to go for it. The man in charge at the moment, Zelt Morais, is he fit to be in office?
Well, that's a bit of a tough question, to be honest, Andy. I'll tell you why. Because from a financial point of view, Zelt is actually an accountant, and he used to work at Nedbank. So it's not like he's an idiot. But from what I've actually gathered from Zelt in the short time that I've just observed, I've met him once at the function at the start of the season. And he's quite a nice guy. He gave a good speech and everything. But the actions he does sometimes, it kind of mind boggles me, to be honest. And I sometimes actually wonder if he does act in the interest of Western Province Rugby, or is he protecting people within the union and himself? You know, and I'm going to say this out blatantly, and their paychecks, because I mean, the union itself is in such a deep financial hole at the moment, and they still make these decisions that I'm not sure if it is like that, but at the point in time, it seems like the American investor, they actually want to self-sabotage this whole investment so those people can't take over and they can keep their positions. I mean, it says a lot about their priorities, and to me, it just seems like they care about themselves more than they care about the union. And to be honest, it doesn't make me a happy person at all.
No, I mean it's a catalogue now, isn't it? I mean, it started weirdly. It's sort of run the same time. It's run the same time as COVID, isn't it? But this all started in January when Paul Sachs was forced out, whatever it was, and now we're here. How's this happened for so long without somebody somewhere stepping in and just saying this isn't right?
Andy, the thing is, like, I think these guys, especially Zalbem, will say they inherited this mess. Now, I can agree with him with that because basically what happened was, I do remember it was back in I'll tell you now, I think it was in 2016. The oddest thing happened. So the then CEO, Rob Wagner, his tenure was supposed
in June that year. But it was the first match of the season, and he announced early retirement. And for no apparent reason, everything seemed hunky-dory. We played the Bulls, which was his last match, 133 points to 9. Everything seemed fine. We're in for a good season. And I think about 3 weeks later, the bomb dropped that the Aerials contract at the point in time went haywire. And the Western Province Rugby a few weeks later would be liquidated. So it's been coming since 2016 already. And, Taylor Wakefield was involved with that as well. And like basically those guys have left now. Rob is gone, Taylor is gone, and Zeld has been voted in as new president. So you can say he inherited this mess, but exactly what is he doing to make it better? Because we look at the deal of Investec and look at the deal of this new flight company. I'm not even sure who they are, to be honest. But to me, there's two factors, and that's Investec is a safe option. For one, it's a known brand, a known company for as long as I can remember, as long as I've been living for 27 years and how many months. And I've never heard of Flight Property Group until this Western Province deal came through with them. Now, their argument is that the Investec deal was only a loan. And as far as I understand, it was never the case. The whole thing was they were going to be debt-free, and they were actually going to go on with their lives, go to Cape Town Stadium and go into a new era without any debt. Now they've gone on, I think it's 112 million loan with this flight group, which they will pay back in 4 years' time from the money they generate from the development of Newlands. But what guarantee do they have that any development, especially within 4 years' time, will actually be be given approval for Newlands to be redeveloped into a mixed vicinity? Because if the city says, well, it's a historical building, there's too many dangers involved in doing this, or whatever the case may be, and it can't go forward, they still need to pay that money back. So from a financial point of view, their decision making in terms of looking ahead to the future in 10, 20 years, they're only looking at now. They don't look at what's going to happen down the line. It's actually shocking, and it's actually worrying for me to see what may happen to Western Province in the Storms going forward.
Yeah, I think that if I'm reading between the lines, G-Man, you can jump in here. I think this deal's a risk over reward sort of thing, that they could come out smelling of roses with basically they've created more companies, haven't they? Sort of co-working companies, cooperatives, whatever you want to call it. And whereas there was guaranteed revenue going to come from the redevelopment of Newlands and profit, it wasn't coming straight away from Investec. Let's be clear about that. It was going to take a few years. But basically on a, whatever it was, like 99-year lease, they were going to get sort of five or I can't remember what the figure was now, maybe 5% of all profit. Plus Investec were going to pay to knock Newlands down, redevelop it. There was absolutely no risk for Western Province Rugby. So, yeah, G-Man, what's your take on this? Because you've obviously kept up with it. You've done a few shows on stuff like this.
Yeah, it's all about with these teams that are running out of money. And for Western Province, the Stormers, you can't really blame COVID for this one, because as Angus said, it's been happening since we've been predicting it for quite some time. But on that topic about Investec and investment in sport, I mean, it definitely is a possibility of helping these teams grow and develop. I mean, we've seen it. New Zealand's been rumored to have it. The Pro 14's been having a few investments in. And I think that it's a way forward if they can get the right people involved to take a team. And from experience with watching the Kings, they need to be rugby-minded. If you don't have a rugby-minded team to throw money into a well-known brand like Western Province and the Stormers, it's just going to demolish them even further, like the Kings are. And it's important to watch. And I mean, Investec have been apart for quite some time, and unfortunately for the province fans, it's all negative at the moment. And hopefully something can happen to get some positive back, because Newlands crowds, let's face it, the best in the country when they play. And it's sad, the fact that we are hearing all this negative talk of finances and dramas here, and people favoritizing others over the brand itself. It's an unfortunate thing, and hopefully one day soon it can bounce back.
Yeah, well, that sort of question is to Angus is more like, as a fan, now, sort of take your rugby 365 cap off. As a fan, and I'm sure you sit in fans forums, you speak to fans. I mean, huge fan base in the whole of the province, especially where we're based down in the sort of Boerland area. How hard is it to watch when you have a squad as strong as that, especially in the forwards, and you as a rugby person are looking at it going, wow, we're so lucky to have these players. Well, I'm sure you'd replace a couple. Everybody would. Yet you're seeing the potential is not flowering because of probably what's happening up in the boardroom. So from a fan's perspective, how difficult is it to watch? And what's the general feeling?
And for the last team,
well?
Sorry, you were saying?
What's the general feeling between the fans of what's happening now? Because we hear it from the media, but rarely do we get a fan's view. Engage it en masse, because you obviously sit in a lot of forums, you chat to Western Province fans. What's the general feeling at the moment?
Well, I'll take you back to the 2012 season, actually. I think we probably had one of the most balanced squads. There was a lot of youngsters that came through, guys like Steven Kitshoff, Eben Etzebeth, Frans Malherbe, they all debuted in that season. And the Stormers came top of the log and somehow crashed in the semi-final against the Sharks. And since then, it seemed like it never got better. They regressed year by year by year. And it's just, like you said, we have this squad of the Springbok team, basically, that won the World Cup last year. And they've underperformed for the last 2 years. It's so frustrating, to be honest, because you have the Springbok pack and you have a few Springbok backline players. And come Saturday, they either win by 2 or 3 points, or they put in a brilliant performance, or they are totally out of the game. They don't even, feature. So for me, it's just kind of like a waste, to be honest. If I have to put it blatantly, it's kind of a waste that these players have been there and they haven't received the proper coaching, you could say, the proper guidance in many forms, and they haven't actually got into a place where they can say they are a championship side. But then you take these guys, you put them in a Springbok setup, and they become champions. It's really a bit of a mind-boggling to me, because I think probably we have some of the best players that other teams envy. They wish they had our players, and I see this when the Bulls sign some province players, and they rejoice about it because they know what they're getting. And it's just, from a fan point of view, it's just so damn frustrating, Andy. I mean, I spoke to a lot of fans as well. I have this supporters group. Well, it's actually me and a few other guys as well. It's like 3 or 4 admins, and we're almost like 30K in it. And there's always a discussion going on about teams and players. And I have to admit, people are very optimistic, but sometimes overly optimistic, in the sense of they still believe that these guys will actually perform on a Saturday, knowing what they did last weekend. So it's not always going well. But I think the general feeling is that we know what the squad can do, what their potential is. And I think the saddest thing to see is that they actually never live up to it. There's only the odd game here and there. Like, for instance, they played the draw against Crusaders last year, for instance. No one gave us a chance. I think the match against the Aguares, when they were on fire, it always seems like the Stormers play against the big teams quite well. And when it comes to the smaller teams, they seem to fade away and never get the business done. So, yeah, like I said, it's just very frustrating. And I just hope that, with Dabo involved now, it's a pity that COVID-19 came to spoil everything this season. But with Dabo involved with the Stormers now, we might get to see a bit of a different element, because there were promising signs. But still, again, the last 2 matches against the Blues and the Sharks, we were totally outplayed for, you can say, the full 80 minutes, especially in the Blues game at Newlands, which was sadly the last one played there. And, there was still a bit of warning signs coming through. So something needs to be done. I'm not sure if it is a cultural thing. If it's a mental thing, perhaps, maybe there's a mental block, because even if we do make the quarterfinals, we seem to lose out. That's one other thing that also frustrates me, is that we get to a point and we can't go any further than that. I think at Newlands, we won 1 out of 9 playoff matches, and that wasn't against the Waratahs in 2010. So it's still frustrating, and I just hope that, by some mean, that John Dobson and Rito and Dawie Snyman can actually make this team go to the next level that we know they can get to.
Do you think, on that note, Angus, with talking about the cultural environment and how the players get into the international jerseys, they're great, and then Province and Stormers, they're not. Do you think that they're actually, I know Dobson's there, as you mentioned, but around the systems, guys behind the scenes like management and all that, besides the board, I'm not really there. They need a proper cleanup, because within management and all that, to really start afresh. If this, let's say, okay, we can't really count this year, but let's go first year of whatever Super Rugby / tournament we get. If they don't like progress, don't you think they need to like swipe everyone out, not players, management, and just start afresh? Because you've always had someone who's a part of the province for some time, but a proper shake-up might clean up the cultural environment. I mean, if you look back at the Springboks when it was Alistair Coetzee's era, it just wasn't very happy or positive. Then Rassie came in and worked a miracle. I mean, that's pretty much what Stormers need. They've got the players, they've got the potential. If they just get the right like head involved, like a Rassie, they could maybe transform and become this team that we all know that they have the potential of being.
Yeah, Gareth, I think if I can tell you one thing is that the culture of mediocrity is a bit too deep in the Stormers. And I'll say this again blatantly because I think it was 2 years ago or a year ago, I think they played against, was it the Rebels or someone, but some team that they were supposed to beat, you can say, with all due respect.
Yeah.
And they rejoiced. No, it was against the Blues actually. And they rejoiced in the change room. You know, I wasn't there, but one of my friends who works for media told me, because she was actually nearby, and she said to me, Angus, it sounds like they won a World Cup in there. I'm like, you guys beat the Blues, cool, but the Blues weren't doing well this season. You know, there's just this culture I get of mediocrity in the team under Robbie Fleck. And I know John Dobson, for instance, he's quite big on culture. He's done it with UCT, with Western Province.
Okay.
And I kind of get the feeling, not just the feeling, but I've spoken to a few players as well. They love Dobbo. They really love what he's doing. And to Dobbo, it's more about it's more about people than it is about players. You know, he's a firm believer in good people makes good players. But he wants a culture, right? He doesn't want any cliques in the group. Like he said at the preseason launch as well. You know, he said that if he sees, for instance, Damien and Herschel goes to lunch together, you know, twice in a week, he'll be like, hold on. This can't be happening. You know, we can't form any cliques. Everyone needs to stick together and everyone needs to mingle to keep the culture good. So, yeah, I do agree with Garrett, though. You know, maybe if things doesn't come right, then I think maybe a bit of a shake-up in the cultural sort of aspect of things might need to happen. But I do believe, and I'll tell you this with all honesty, that I think under John Dobson, and I hope I'm right, that things will change, because just his whole philosophy on how he is with people and just his coaching ability as well, I think that the Stormers might move into the right direction in that regard.
Indeed. Now then, on to the Cheetahs. G-Man, lead us in. What's going on?
I do too. I really do. And Renan, you'll be able to add to this. I mean, from my experience with watching Pro 14 and being involved with the Kings, I mean, I feel like you and I are the two teams that got deserted. I know the Kings didn't do any great things, but for the Cheetahs, for example, I mean, they haven't done anything wrong, and they're getting deserted by SA Rugby. I mean, I've got a few followers overseas from Scarlets, from Leinster. All of them are saying the Cheetahs deserve to be there. They haven't been a disappointment. They've been competitive. They've had their moments, and they've just now forgotten out of Pro 14 for now. But this whole story with the future of Pro 16, whatever we're going to call it, the fact that the Cheetahs aren't there, I think is a little bit criminal after all they've achieved and are progressing and getting better. I mean, you know it better. What's your thoughts, Renan, on
it? Gareth, listen, I think I need to paint you a picture. I'm going to go back a couple of years, but you'll understand in a minute how we've been treated and how we've been received. I don't want to sound like a victim here. Not at all. Not in the least. But what needs to be said needs to be said. The Super 10 started just after 1995 World Cup. I think just before. And then Super 12 happened, where Sharks, Stormers, Bulls, and Lions played. No questions were asked about it. It's just how it was. And then Free State won the Currie Cup. No. Sorry about that. That comes later. In 1996, Free State made the Currie Cup semi-final, and Western Province didn't. And at that time, the arrangement or the reasoning or the modus operandi, call it what you want, was that the 4 semi-finalists play, all right?
Good.
And Free State made the semi-final in 1997. In fact, no, it's not. It's 97. We made the semi-final. In fact, we lost the final. No, man. No, scratch. There was this one year. I can't remember. My chronological order isn't completely correct. But there was this one year where we made the semi-final. Western Province did it. Okay? And we played Super Rugby that year. Now, we weren't just allowed into the Super 12. Harold Verster, the then president of the Free State Rugby Union, had to go and see Dr. Louis Luyt, who was the chief in charge of SARU, and convince him that we can now, in fact, play Super 12 next year. Now, what is that about? The rule is you make the semi-final, you're in. That's how we were treated. Okay, so the following year we played Super 12 and just missed out on a playoff spot, and then that was our year of Super Rugby. Then we didn't make it in the Currie Cup that year, and Western Province replaced us. No qualms there, no problem. Rules are rules. So it became the Super 14 in 2006. We won the Currie Cup in 2005. Before that, they were the Cats.
With the Lions as the Cats?
Yes, before that, they were the Cats. A total abortion of an idea. A mess. Yeah. You know, small things that people can't remember anymore. The Cats' idea, playing Joburg and play some games in Bloemfontein. So you've got your core group of players from Bloemfontein that moved to Johannesburg for 5 months or whatever. If a player gets injured, let's say a Rassie Erasmus or an Andre Venter gets injured, that player is not replaced by another Free State player. Because at the same time, while you had the Super Rugby, you had the Vodacom Cup, which is like Currie Cup watered down kind of thing. Okay? They used Lions players. So the guys in Bloemfontein who played Vodacom Cup played for absolutely nothing. You had, in so many instances, you had better players playing Vodacom Cup for Free State than in the corresponding position playing for the Lions. Yet the Lions players get drafted into the Cats every single time. They play 75% of the home games at Ellis Park, and we get 3 games in Bloemfontein. And then nobody attends that because you're not going to attend that. Doesn't make sense. No. So, and then, all right, then we won the Currie Cup in 2005, and we became a fully fledged franchise. Fast forward a couple of years, and now all of a sudden we're not marketable, and financially we don't make sense, and what? So we get kicked out of Super Rugby. Thank goodness the North was kind to us, and we were allowed, along with the Kings, into the Pro 14. The idea, and sorry, let me just at this point allow me to just accentuate the fact that that was all done in spirit. We could have put up a fight. We could have said, listen, we've got a contract with Sanzar, what, and we can enforce that. Yeah. We didn't. In the spirit of the game, we said, okay, we'll go. The Pro 14 is there, we'll take it. Right, and we did well. And we grew as a team, etc. Now, again, what now? We were laughed at. We are Super Rugby relegates. What all? Okay? Now, the Pro 14, which was too crap for the 4 high and mighty teams. Now, all of a sudden, they want in. Super Rugby was the be-all and end-all. Now, Super Rugby is no more. Now, those cowards. And Angus, I'm referring to your team, not to you. And not the team. I'm actually referring to the brains trust behind the team. They're cowards. That's what they are. They're nothing else than that. Because they want to push us out so that they can be safe. We said, listen, let's play this competition that's coming now. Call it what you want. Call it Currie Cup, call it Super Rugby SA, call it the flipping Vodacom Cup. Just, I don't care what you want. The top 4 teams play Pro 16, whatever, next season. That's what we say. They say, no, we must be out. Because they're scared. Because they know the Cheetahs make the top 4 every single year. We don't miss out. So one of them will miss out. And they're scared of that. So now they make this block. So what options are we left with? We're left with a court. Now allow my legal brain here. Andy, I'm nearly finished.
Box for
SARU. SARU is an administrative body. And when an administrative body makes a decision, that is called an administrative decision. It's a legal concept. Okay? Anybody that feels aggrieved by this decision taken is at liberty to approach the court with application proceedings where you aver that the administrative body in taking the decision did not apply their minds properly. Now that's a very wide concept, but it's supposed to be a wide concept because that's how you can now address it. Say, they didn't apply their minds because these and these and these and these reasons. Before you can go to court, you need to send the administrative body, in this instance SARU, a letter saying, apply your minds or else we reserve our rights to approach court, blah, blah, blah. That letter has been sent. It's not going to be sent. It has been sent. The line has been drawn. Now, I personally, and I know many people in the Brains Trust in the Free State don't believe that we don't subscribe to the fact that you go and fight it out in court. You don't. It's rugby. You fight it between the 4 lines, not in court. But in this instance, it's fast becoming our only avenue here. So this is probably going to become ugly. It's going to become a hell of a mudslinging incident. And I'm not being arrogant. I'm not being funny. But I can't see us lose that fight. We've got all the facts behind us. So yes, that's about it. That's about it. Gareth, you asked my take. That's my take for you.
And this probably goes to everyone here. I mean, let's say we go to the Super Rugby Currie Cup, whatever it's going to be called, and the Cheetahs actually end up winning. Can SA Rugby actually ignore the fact and kick them out? I mean, if they win the trophy, which they definitely can do, I mean, making note that some of the Springboks are probably going to not play the second half of it because they're going to go for the Rugby Championship or Eight Nations.
Sorry to interrupt you. That's their problem. That's their problem. We're also going to lose a couple of players. That's our problem. It's part of the game. Sorry, Gareth, to interrupt.
It's going to give them, the other teams, a chance to actually beat these bigger teams. And I see the Cheetahs actually doing extremely well. And for me, if the Cheetahs end up winning, SARU can't ignore them. And I think the world itself, because everyone's been watching rugby around the world, be it Premiership and all that, especially now during COVID, there are going to be more eyes on this Currie Cup Super Rugby tournament because we haven't seen South Africa play since the World Cup. So many people are going to be watching. If the Cheetahs win and they do not get the credit of going to the next biggest tournament, whether it's still Super Rugby or Pro 14 or 16, there's going to be a lot of hate worldwide on SARU, and they're going to get a lot of comments on it from worldwide. And I think they're going to be forced into pressure of actually doing the right thing and giving the Cheetahs an opportunity. Obviously, we don't know. As you said, there's clearly favoritism over the 4 big teams. But who knows what could happen going forward? I think if the Cheetahs do enough to make a stand, they can do it.
Yeah.
Yes, but see, the problem is, sorry, Andy, the problem is, right now, as we sit here, the criterion isn't the top 4 in this competition. Right now, it's favoritism, like you correctly pointed out. And that's the only criterion. And and we can do as well as we want on the field. They'll just continue. You know, look at the situation in New Zealand, where you had Wellington, who played B-section rugby for, I think, 3 years in a row, while the Hurricanes won the Super Rugby tournament in that time. The status of the provincial team there in New Zealand bears no reference to their 5 franchises or whatever they call themselves. Auckland can be having a nightmare season, but the Blues can do very well. SARU will just say, well, same thing here.
Yeah, I think for me, just to sort of take it back a step, I think from a rugby perspective, so like obviously I'm not emotionally attached to the Cheetahs or sort of really any sort of province here, but I think from my point of view, if I was involved with that, I think it's just watching the development of the Cheetahs over the last few years and seeing that where they'd actually got to now. So we had Reno Smith on last 2 weeks ago. It was a great chat. Not only has he just been awarded, top try scorer in the division, which one man doesn't make a team, but go back and look at those 10 tries he scored. He just finishes most of them off because that team created those tries, a lot of them from deep. They were playing great rugby. They moved forward so far to the fact that they had so many home games left in this season that they could have well been having a good old tilt at the title this year. I'm not saying they were good enough to beat Leinster, not at all. But one-off games, you never know what's going to happen. On a hardened pitch in Bloom, possibly, you never know, And I think that's the biggest disappointment if they are booted out here. But my final word on this, before we get some comments from the guys watching, Angus, from your perspective, watching this all unfold and watching how good the Cheetahs have been playing rugby recently, if they do go to a top 4 and they go up, are you genuinely worried that the Stormers could be left high and dry? Or are you ever thinking SARU just love us 4 Super Rugby guys too much and they just won't do it?
Well, before I answer you, Andy, I have to tell you one thing. I've always had a bit of a soft spot for the Cheetahs. I think like many other fans in South Africa as well. So I normally say, I don't mind losing to the Cheetahs. I actually get mad at it, but also I'm like, it's okay. It's my second team. So, yeah, I'm a little bit worried, though, because, the Cheetahs, they've been on a roll for a while now. And I think in their first season, they actually came third and lost the semis. So in Pro 14, that is. And to me, it's just that the Cheetahs are basically the stepchild of SA Rugby, the unfairly treated stepchild for no apparent reason. If you look at the franchise as a whole, if they could have kept, let's say, a crop of players for 5 years, they would have been a champion side. No two ways about it. If you think about it, guys that left during the years, you had the Lode Jager, Adrian Strauss, who went to the Bulls, Lapis Labuskaghni. There's so many talented players that left the Free State, when they were in their prime. Sarah Pretorius, all those guys. If they managed to hold on to those guys for, let's say, a period of 5 years and build a squad, and get their depth in with other youngsters coming through, they could have been such a damn good side. I'm not saying they're not, but they could have been so much better. And, I totally get Rhiannon's frustrations because, if they treated the Stormers or Western Province like this, I would have been, almost said the word pissed, I would have been totally mad about it because it's so unfair towards not just the players, but the fans, even the sponsors as well, because the 1 week you're in Super Rugby and then a couple of weeks down the line, you play a Currie Cup and a Pro 14 tournament, in the same space of time. You have to juggle 2 squads like it was in the start for them. That was a challenge in itself. And they still managed to make the playoffs in the Pro 14. So to me, it's just sad what happened to the Cheetahs. And I actually don't like it, to be honest, because, like I said, I do have a soft spot for them, firstly. And secondly, they are just like the stepchild of SA Rugby, and it shouldn't be that way because they are a very key part, to SA Rugby because of the players that has been coming through to the Free State system. A lot of them went on to the Sharks, to the Bulls, to Province, like the Wayne van Meulen is a good example. And they are really the breeding ground. Great college. Look at that, all the good schoolboys. They're all from there. It's Great Bloom for that matter. It's all Free State, but after school, those guys go to Province, they go to Sharks, they go to wherever, the Lions. They don't go to the Cheetahs, like only a handful of them. And again, if those youngsters can be kept in, and the Cheetahs can have better finances to do so, they would have been in such a good position all these years. But unfortunately, it just haven't gone their way. And I think I totally share Rhiannon's frustration because it's just so unfair on everybody, to be honest.
Yeah, and we won't go into it now, but I think from a SARU perspective, you could end up seeing schoolboys going even further afield than just in South Africa, and that would be probably even more criminal than them going to another province. But while Rhiannon's blood pressure is trying to just come down a little bit. There's been some great comments on this side there. So Joe, if you could bring a few up and we'll share them with the guys. Nigel Quigley. Joe Lyons replying to Nigel Quigley. Yeah, but to be honest, I think gone are the days of seeing 80,000 plus heading into games. It's gone for at least the next 3 to 5 years. Agreed. Then there's also the development of stadia. You can bet your bottom dollar no financial investment is going to be made in that till this is clearer. Teams are in the bloody hard time, and the only saving will be the TV the clubs need to negotiate that ASAP to reflect the change in times that we now find ourselves in. Completely agree, Joe. The thing with this is that it's a massive chicken and egg situation. You need the facilities so that people want to come, but you need a brand of rugby also that people want to come. And look, I think we're all in agreement. Take sentiment out of a place like Newlands. One bar in the railway stand is brutal, and you miss most of your game trying to get one beer. So the facilities at the Cape Town Stadium are going to be fantastic. Yeah. You put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig. Nigel Quigley, I feel cheaters earn their place at the Pro 14 tournament. I guess most of the Pro 14 fans feel that way. I think all four of us on this screen now feel exactly the same. It's not good. And obviously, the other franchise that is going through a really tough time is the shirt that G-Man's wearing tonight. The Kings, mate. Are we long live the King, or the King's dead? Long live the Cheetah Stormers hybrid.
Yeah. You know, it's a tough one because obviously Eastern Province is another breeding ground of some greats of the past that we've also lost out on. And you know, I wish they could be playing. I mean, especially in the Currie Cup or whatever we're going to have in the next few weeks, because I just think they could have done a few things differently and stood out. Potentially, the players they had were great. They were passionate. They had a lot of love. But unfortunately, the ownership of the team let them down big time. There was all hype last year. They were called the greatest rugby company. Rugby was the last thing they really knew. It was more about business. And even there were people within the management system who also said, you know, that they just don't know rugby, and it's frustrating. And they weren't even sure whether they would keep their jobs. And they are the rugby brains behind the scenes that are keeping this team somewhat alive. And it kills us because we've been a part of some of the players down here in PE and seeing the passion. I mean, when Dimitri Katrakiles came down, big hype. We were excited. A good, solid fly-off. He's got experience. SARU Pretoria is one of the greats of scrum halves. I mean, we had these guys coming down, feeding in, but it just wasn't like managed well. We got Robbie Kempston involved. He did a few things, and they just couldn't quite adapt because, one, money is unfortunately a factor, and just the people up top did not know what they were doing. And when we lost the greatest rugby company a few months ago, and SARU took it over again, there was good vibes again. Those current management positions, the media managers and all that, were looking positive because now Rassie was getting involved and he was actually communicating with the Kings and things were looking positive. But unfortunately, due to finances, they could not continue playing for the year. So do I see them coming back? I think next year, yes, but not obviously in a format of Pro 14 or whatever it may be. It's going to be Currie Cup, Vodacom Cup. It's sadly going to be back to, and I hope I'm wrong, where we were back in 2010, 2011, where we were fighting as EP Kings to just get through. And I sadly think we've gone back to that route, and it's going to be one hell of a climb to get back up.
Yeah, SARU for me, they got the old Rob Andrew Teflon shoulders. When the going's good, they seem to want to be involved with the Kings. And they seem to be able to pick and drop whenever they feel like it. Reen, are you gonna miss that rivalry? You were like sort of, you were like best friends that loved to hate each other, weren't you? Because you both got cast aside, but then went on to venture up league tables in Pro 14.
Andrew, I don't think we ever had love-hate with the Kings during the Pro 14 time now, you see it very much with the Interpros in Ireland, and you got the two Scottish teams going back to 1872. I mean, there's such rich history. You need to see the Cheetahs and the Kings in isolation. We were both admitted to the Pro 14 together, and we rooted for each other. When the Kings played against whoever, we rooted for the Kings loudly. And I know they did the same when we played against whoever. So there was never that. Yes, when we played against each other, it was everything. We left nothing out on the field. Just look at that game we played against them now down in PE, where Rainer Smith himself had to go and score that try after the hooter just to win the game for us by a point or two or something. That's how deep it went. They're a very, very tough team to beat down there. Just ask Glasgow Warriors. I mean, they've taken a few scalps. But no, we've never had the word hate never existed. No, never. A rivalry, yes. Healthy rivalry, yes. But we always rooted for each other.
Agreed.
Yeah, I just think it's a real shame that we can't seem to recover this sort of situation at the moment. And then to read, Renan sent us a fantastic article, like a very bittersweet article in the fact that it was well written, and I'm glad that people are getting help. But this is where we have this conversation so many times with rugby players all around the world, and you hear on podcasts around the world that as soon as these players finish, they're left to their own devices. And we're clearly worried now that's going to happen with the Kings. And now we have, all of a sudden, they're having to get psychologists in, and Renan shared this with us earlier, psychologists in to deal with the players and the coaches and the staff. And the staff as well. Don't forget, these aren't just 15 on the field. There's so many people that go into running a rugby club. And they're worried about their mental health now, because they probably won't be earning any money all of a sudden. And they've just gone through COVID. They think they're going to get back playing. And then this happens. And this is what infuriates me the most. Oh, I'm getting like all Renan now. But this is what infuriates me the most, is that it's not just what happens on the field. So it's all well and good to know, we can't watch the Kings this year. That's terrible. Think of the people that have actually lost their jobs. G-Man, you probably know a few people that you've spoken to. What's the vibe? How are they? And what support are they actually getting?
No, look, we've got close contact with the media manager. We've met a few of the players. I mean, Scott, the Kings captain, I mean, he was by this greatest rugby company, whatever they're called, the GRC, whatever.
Company in the wide world.
Yeah, whatever. They obviously didn't know what they were doing, and these guys, Ferreira was like, he doesn't see himself ending. He doesn't want to retire, but he's going to be forced. Then these guys go, and he sees, oh, now we got a potential. I can finish off my career with my team, stick to them, and now the shit's hit the fan, and they now unfortunately can't play. I know of the team's manager. I mean, I've known her for a few years. Big love, not only for just the sport, but for those players and what they've achieved. I mean, we were in a Super Sport quiz about a month ago, and you watch the relationships with these Kings players, the comedy, the camaraderie. It was just great. And now you've lost it. You've lost friendships. You've lost your sport that you love. You've lost your job, your career, your training, your exercise. And these guys are taking a hit. I mean, there's few who are saying they don't even know what the future holds for them. Is rugby over? Is their career over? Or do they have to move when they actually don't want to move? I mean, look at Katrakiles, for example. He comes down, he plays a few games, and unfortunately he's forced to retire because of the situation. SARU Pretorius, he had another year or two in him, but because of the situation, he's now gone into retirement. Players have lost out big time, and I feel for them, and I'm glad they're getting help. But like you said, Andy, it's not just the players. It's there's people behind the scenes that we don't get to see. And I think a lot of people confuse it with the board. It's not the board. It's the team managers, the people, or the physios. You know, you all build a relationship and a friendship and a camaraderie.
Yeah,
You're a family, and now that's all gone. So it's gonna be a tough blow for them. And for their sake, I hope they bounce back. But, we'll have to wait and see what the future rugby holds. The only thing I could say is, like going back to what I said about Western Province, is if you can get a good investment that knows the sport, loves the sport, not just I'm giving it to you because I'm going to help you and then leave you to die and dry like what that company did. If they can just invest, the Kings have the potential. I mean, our schooling systems are good. We've got Grey PE here, which produces these guys. We've got small other rugby teams within, and they're producing quality, but we are losing them because there's no system in place. And now we've lost our own freaking provincial team franchise, which is heartbreaking. And I mean, yeah, just being a part of the journey with these guys and now not seeing them on a weekly basis on a radio show, it's tough because we just don't know when or if we will see these guys again.
Gareth, also, sorry, Andy, if you look at it in a micro system of the family, okay, the family at home, husband, wife, children, you got senior player. Look, let's take from the CHEETAHS now. Let's take Franstein, who could have stayed on in France, no problem. I mean, no question he could have stayed on. But he came back after, right, he wants to play for the Boks next year against Lions, fair game. But he came to the CHEETAHS for that reason, signed a deal, took his kids out of school in France, uprooted his wife, bring them here. To do what? To uproot them 6 months later. Think of that impact on those children, on his wife, on their extended families, on his friends back in France. This thing's much wider, eh? Much wider.
Yeah, it's mad. It's a minefield. It's a minefield everywhere.
On that note, even with Dania and PE, SARU Pretorius, I mean, he took his boys all the way from the Dragons and brought them to PE, set them into grade junior. And I mean, I met one of his sons, and I mean, they were progressing. And because of the Kings not working, he's taken them back to Free State to continue to finish off his retirement there. And I mean, all these guys had future, and like you said, with Steyn. I mean, Bismarck du Plessis was in the media the other day of talking about coming back to Free State. So will these guys come back now? Because where are the Cheetahs going to surface? Where are the Kings going to surface now? Because there are other guys that are clearly taken care of more.
Yeah. Just to finish this part off, there's actually two comments from Nigel Quigley I'd like Joe to bring up. The first one he was going to bring up anyway, and then the final one, if that's all right. Please, Joe. Kings are a different animal. Great going forward, but awful in defence. Although on another show, it was said they are a defensive and mind skills coach short of being a decent team. I think, yeah, you can probably see in their play sometimes mentally a bit of toughness was probably needed. And then Nigel's finished it off there by saying, I recall that being said of Connacht once. And you're right. Yeah. And the rest of that is history, as they say. So, yeah. Right. That's pro rugby for you. Yeah, it is, unfortunately. There's no loyalty after or during careers nowadays. Right, weirdly, well, not weirdly, because actually that's what everyone on the show is passionate about, is their own provinces and teams, which some people don't believe exists anymore, but clearly it does in abundance. But there is also, just to add to Saru's troublesome times at the moment, there is also a debate on where the Springboks should be playing their rugby next. Angus, are you going to go north or are you going to go south? What do you think, if you were in the chair, would be the best decision for the Springboks in October or November to do?
Oh, Andy, I'm in two minds, to be honest, man. I think from a financial point of view, we can all agree going north is the best way. But you know the old saying of iron sharpens iron. And I kind of feel that if we want to stay competitive, we want to stay a top 2 nation, then we need to stick with Super Rugby. Unfortunately, now the Kiwis want us out in Super Rugby, but they want us in the championship. So they're kind of scared of, what's going to be going forward in our ways. But yeah, I think from like I said, a financial point of view, I would go north, but my heart says south. Like, I'm staying with the south. Like, I'm a Southern Hemisphere fanatic. I love the kind of game we play, and I've never been a fan of Northern Hemisphere rugby. So yeah, it's gonna be hard for me to see the Stormers play Connacht or Leinster or whatever team is up there. And I would prefer. Let me put it this way: I'd rather struggle in Super Rugby as opposed to winning the Pro 14. I think that sums it up perfectly. To be honest, I feel.
But for the
Listen,
Springboks,
Gareth, not talking down to you in any sense, but believe me, winning the Pro 40, no South African team currently, right now, is capable of doing that. Take my word. They're not capable.
but from a Springboks perspective, do you want to see them play in a rugby championship, or I mean, it sounds like they've got a decision to make. Are they going to play in this 18 tournament, or do you want them to play in the rugby championship this year? My fear would be, if I was a Springbok fan, is that you go down to New Zealand and get your, let's be honest, arses handed to you on a plate, not only just because of the quality of rugby that New Zealand are playing, but in the Springboks' defence, they could well be very undercooked with the amount of rugby that they haven't played. So take this 1 year only. Where would you go? Where do you think is a sensible place to go?
Well, to be honest, we need preparation first and foremost. Like you've mentioned, you're gonna get our asses handed on a plate to us if we just leave, after 2 or 3 matches in whatever competitions going forward. But I think long-term spoken, if we do go north, let's put it this way: if we do go north, then we should probably look at tours again. A 3-match tour to New Zealand every 2 years, and then they come 2 years after that to South Africa. Because to me, like I said to someone the other day as well, I want to play New Zealand or see New Zealand play, on a regular. I don't want to wait like England did for 4 years to play them again after, they beat them in 2012. So, yeah, definitely, I would probably say I wouldn't mind staying in the Rugby Championship and get my ass handed to me. But on the other end of the scale, you want to test yourself against some of the best in the world. And it's always been the All Blacks. We are number 1 now, which is great. But I think they'll always be our biggest rivals. And they need to respect that as well as ourselves. So, yeah, I think I would say, go Rugby Championship. But, then again, if you can go north and get the financial benefit and still be able to play New Zealand, let's say once every 2 years in a 3-test series, it could bring another element, to the supporters, because you'll be hungry. You won't get New Zealand each year anymore. You might get 3 matches in South Africa as opposed to 1 each year, every 2 years. So, yeah, I think, for all intents and purposes, if I could say, let's stick it to the way it is now, I would say yes. But it's always that concept of, what can be done to improve the rugby again going forward as well.
Yeah, I think
Andy,
go on, Ray.
if I can give just my 5 cents here. Look at the Rugby Championship, how it's been structured since the beginning of it. It's always the Boks against Argentina, again against Argentina, and then they go overseas and play the Wallabies first, then the All Blacks. Then they play the Wallabies in South Africa, and then they finish off against the All Blacks. That's never changed. Never changed. It's always that sequence. It's a yawn. Look at the Six Nations. The sequence of matches is changed up every year, with home and away. If England plays Scotland at Murrayfield this year, they play them at Twickenham next year. But it's not always in the same order. They may play France first now this year. Next year they'll play France third in the queue. I think it's time for a new thing. Not only am I convinced that the Boks will be so much better off going north due to the quality of rugby that's played here. Yes, the All Blacks play a great game, but they're the All Blacks. Look at what we've been seeing in Australia now. There's nothing going on. In the north has been dishing up quality rugby for how many years now? So for those 2 reasons, I say it's time for a change, and that time is now. The All Blacks will come crying soon enough, take my word.
But see, my argument with this, and I'm going to stick to it, who needs who more? And I still believe that New Zealand needs South Africa more than South Africa need New Zealand. I've said it from when this first rumour came. They're going to potentially play 6 games against Australia in the bloody slow cup, as I like to call it. And it's just like, oh my word. then
They're going to lose it all.
they're often in danger of ostracizing themselves. What do you reckon, G-Man?
Yeah, I agree. Look, I've got different thoughts on this. And look, before we get into the international, I just want to say my 2 cents with the provincial side. If I was the lead on the top, what I would do is I would split it. I would take 3 teams to the Pro 14, and I'll take 3 teams to Super Rugby. That way we get the best of both worlds. How are we going to do it? Well, maybe you have to do a qualifying system within, and the top guys get to choose. I don't know. Just so we have our feelers in both provinces. It's probably impossible, but if we could have Super Rugby and Pro 14 and develop North and South, I think it will be a good way forward. You guys, Andy and Joe, will know this best. The Six Nations is history. I mean, there is history. To throw in South Africa there, I just don't see management or the top guys up there allowing it. I would love to join the Six Nations because I think it will be bloody competitive. And I think we give every team there a good run and vice versa. And I think it will be an awesome tournament. So I'm all for it. The Rugby Championship, I mean, I grew up watching it, so I've always been a fan. I agree with Angus. If we can bring in the tours, I'm all for it. Then move us north. But going back to what you said, I couldn't agree more. New Zealand need us. The players have said it. The fans are saying it. One of the greatest games in the world are New Zealand, South Africa. It is watched all over the world. You're on the edge of your seat, whether you get 57-0 or you get a draw, you get a loss or a win. People are excited for it. And if they're going to lose that or have to wait how many years for it, they're going to lose out. You're going to play Australia so many times, as you said, Andy, and people are going to get bored because Bledisloe Cup is it's just one of those things. It's historic, but New Zealand are going to dominate it the whole time. People aren't going to want to see it. So then you're waiting for the June and November internationals. Is it the same? Not quite. So I agree. I think the Rugby Championship, we won't leave just yet because of that. And I think New Zealand are going to fight hard for us. But as for Pro 14 and Super Rugby, if we could, I would like the best of both worlds there.
Yeah, we'll give you a chance to intertwine. You get a full world rugby. It would stand the box in good stead. And the fact that they'd have good knowledge around the globe. There's a couple of comments there actually from Joe Lyons. I've asked Joe to pick up, and this is something I completely agree with. Lads, it ain't the Pro 14, 16 the carrot. The big prize is the EPC. That is where the money is looking for period. I've said this before. I think I'm not the only person. I'm not a revolutionary. Do not sign an agreement with the Pro 14 unless Heineken Cup Rugby is on the table. It is pointless unless Heineken Rugby is on the table, because who does not want to see Stormers versus Toulon down at the Cape Town Stadium? I'll be the first in line to buy a ticket for that one. And then sticking with the international rugby, New Zealand need a bit of a shock and fright. Far too long they've dictated everything south. They still are. They get very annoyed when England dictates to them up north, especially around money. Box need to capitalise on that, make a decision that's best for them, not Sanzar, whoever they are called now. And I completely agree with that, actually. And I think that just reiterates what we were getting at, that sometimes pride can well become before a fall. David Rees, we love it when I say we love it, mate. I've been to Twickenham and watched some amazing Springbok games there. Some that we've been stuffed in, some that 2002, Mr. Krieger behaving like a chump. But
Don't go there.
I was looking down. Watch this back. I was looking down at your screen, waiting for it, mate. Just because you went to school together doesn't make it right. But yeah, no. And look at that. As we say that, we tick over to the hour mark. Guys, brilliant show tonight. I've really enjoyed it. It's been massively insightful. I'm loving the passion. That's what's so good about the format that Joe's put together for all of us, is that we can come on here and just speak the way we want to speak as fans and passionate rugby people. And we don't have to filter it or water it down. It is what it is, and none of us are happy with the situation in world rugby at the moment. We could sit here for another 2 hours, but I've got to drive, and there's a flipping curfew in this country. So, Renan, thank you so much for your time. Angus, thank you so much for your time. G-Man, I love co-hosting with you, man. It's so good. I love it.
It was awesome.
just on a side note, still hasn't invited me on his show, but he's been on here twice. Never mind.
I will.
But we need some Northern Hemisphere rugby against some Southern Hemisphere. We'll have a good chat then. But guys, thanks so much for joining us tonight. The comments have been really, really good, really insightful, which shows you that we have had amazing guests on, because that makes you want to talk about it. Thank you again to Workshop 17, our partners. Thank you to Joe behind the scenes. There's loads of shows coming up. There's the Big Joe and Kigo show. There's Ulster ones planned. There's Leinster ones planned. There's Welsh Roundup ones. Guys, follow Three Blokes, a Ball and a Bod, and then you can navigate yourself away to the different groups, including the Drie Bokke one, and of course the YouTube channel as well. Just subscribe, send it out there. All of this goes live on YouTube straight away afterwards. You can pick up all the shows. You can share. We don't get paid for this. A share's worth a fiver. But until next time, we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Thank you so much for coming on this evening, gentlemen, and thank you for everyone who's watched, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me, Andy. Cheers.
Yeah.